So, friends, good evening. This is a presentation on, or it's going to be a discussion on your polymer chemistry paper that is on polymer processing techniques in the polymer industry. So, the contents of this particular, presentation belong in your syllabus basically, and it's meant for only private circulation amongst our students from Sacred Heart. So this is from your current polymer chemistry paper, CS642A. And your references, they should be, very simple references here. So we are going to, on a major basis use Gaurikar Vishwanathan, Jayasridhar Polymer Chemistry, that is a book that was published in 1978, or the last reference, that is Jagadamba Singh and Organic Polymer Chemistry from Pragati Publishers. So either of these books you can use to get more details on this topic. So we'll go into the contents of the presentation. So I'll show you the contents. So the contents are, first one is compounding, then we have calendaring, die casting, rotational casting, and film casting. So we'll do the calendaring and die casting in one video, and then we'll break it up the remaining into rotational casting and film casting into another video. Okay, so it's better for you to focus on simple things than complex things. So I think it'll be more easier for you, I believe. So we'll go into the concepts. So what is compounding basically? So compounding is like when the polymer, that is the crude polymer, is synthesized or manufactured or brought out. That particular polymer we call as a virgin polymer, or some resins we have. Those are called as virgin resins. Now, to this polymer, when you are adding color or when you're adding like other agents like stabilizing agents, you add like curatives, you add stabilizers, then flame retardants. You also had plasticizers, when you add lubricants into this. So when you're adding this to the virgin polymer, this process we call as compounding. So what it does is, you know, looking at it from an outside perspective, the pure crude polymer is changed into something that is more, either it is more strengthened or either it's more flexible, it looks more colorful, it is more stable, or it is more, resistance to heat, or it's inflammable. All these things happen. So this process of, mixing the virgin polymer with materials that are going to make it, a more stabilized material, crude material, we call this process as compounding. Now, what's polymer processing basically? So polymer processing is, you convert the crude or the compounded polymer into differently shaped articles. So either you like make sheets out of them, either you make films out of them, either you make dolls out of them, or you make foam structures out of them. So this process of converting the polymer material, that is the crude polymer material that is going to come out from the industry, that is the compounded polymeric material from the industry, into utility articles. So you're going to make it into utility articles. This process we call as polymer processing. So one of the first methods of polymer processing that we'll be looking in here is calendering. Okay, so what does calendering do? What is the necessity of calendering? So what calendering does is it converts the polymer into continuous films, or it converts it into sheets. Okay, so how does this happen? So a calendaring machine, it is usually made up of rollers. So the initial roller is usually hot. So where there you first feed the compounding polymeric material, and the material flows through the gaps between the rollers. So based on the size of the gaps between the rollers, you get what? Polymeric sheets. Okay, so you can see in this particular image where you have, rollers here that keep rolling. And here you have the compounded polymeric material. It is dropped into the intaker, or we call this basically as a hopper, which is going to drop it into the rollers. So the hot rollers, they'll convert solid material into like a paste, like pasty like structure, which is going to push it through the rollers. So the distance between the rollers will determine the thickness of the sheet. Okay, so firstly you have three hot rollers and the last one is a cold roller. So you get a calendar sheet which goes to the wind up. So these are the guide rollers that push the sheets to the wind up. So, like previously, recently there was a video on YouTube, they were making buris out of, wheat flour, where they ground the buris, they made it into the dowd flour, and then they put it into rollers where long sheets were, and then it was cut into round shapes which fell into oil and were taken out and dried from oil and packed. So that video is something that would give you a good idea of the thickness of the sheets as well as the polymers. What That's not exactly a polymer, to be very frank, but of course the contents are polymeric. Okay, so the sheets are, wound up into rolls, or they have engraved into different shapes, and it is decorated. So what are the polymers that can be used here? Is PVCs can be used, polyethylene, acrylonitrile butadiene, ABS mixture, and rubbers are used in the case of calendering. Okay, so very simple process which is easy for you to understand and make it into the exams. Okay. Now, the next thing is die casting. So what happens here is, here we normally, this process of die casting is mainly meant for, resin-like polymers. Okay. So you'll have a pre-polymer that is a limited cross-link polymer, which you'll be taking as a liquid and you'll be pouring it as a liquid into a die. So the die is usually made of, plaster of Paris or some sort of, cemented, dyes or things like that. So we first pour the limited crosslink polymer into the dye, and then you add a curing agent. So curative is something that is going to cause cross-linking. So when it is added into that, then we heat the dye. Actually. So we call it as a petri dish. Actually, petri dish is, that is the dye basically. So in the petri dish, you have the liquid pre-polymer or a polymer that is having limited cross-linking. To that, the other thing, that is a curative, is added, and other things can also be added, like stabilizing agents or whatever can be added, but here it is more like a compounded polymeric liquid material that is added into the petri dish or the dye. Okay, and then you have the curative and you heat it. So the what happens during heating is cross-linking polymerization happens. So it forms a solid structure in the petri dish or inside the dye. So you're going to heat it, of course, definitely for the curing reaction to occur. So what are the polymers that can be used in die casting? You can take a look in, is acrylics are used, epoxies are used, polyesters, phenolics, and urethanes are used. Okay, so we'll continue with the polymer processing techniques. You have two more, that is, rotational casting and film casting in the next session. Okay, thank you for now. Take care.